Hello and welcome to all beautiful souls out there. You're listening to the Restore My Soul podcast with Princess Millens, your favorite grief coach and emotional wellness specialist. In this space, we will help those who struggle with grief and loss and have real conversations about how to overcome it in every area of life. Through our personal stories, practical information, and wisdom from Princess and her special guests. We are here to educate, inspire, and empower you with the strategies you need in your emotional healing journey. We do not offer medical advice, but we believe that we can all learn to heal by creating a mindset to grow past our pain and push toward our purpose. Our goal is to remind you that grief is a journey and you do not have to walk it alone, no matter what the pain or loss is. You can be restored and live fully in your purpose. So let's push through the pain together as we share our stories of resilience, one episode at a time.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Restore My Soul podcast. Thank you so much for joining today and being a part of this great conversation that we have over here, where we have real conversations, real people to talk about how they push through their pain and the struggles and the obstacles, the adversity in their life, and was able to walk into their God-given purpose. I am Princess Millens. I'm your favorite grief and emotional wellness coach, and I'm your host today and every single day. And I am so glad that you are here. Hopefully you're ready for another powerful testimony. And we have such a one that will bring us to us today. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Tammi Parnell. She is very, very special to me. And I had the pleasure of meeting her in person for the first time last year, and just love her so much. And she is a wife, she is a mother and a grandmother, and a native of Michigan, but she currently resides in Georgia right now. She has spent 20 years in the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, and she has a passion for women and who have dealt with rejection and abandonment issues early in life, and women who lack self-identity as well, and lack of worth and brokenness, and who seem to focus on their past hurt and just can't move forward. So she is a licensed minister of the gospel who have faithfully served God for over 25 years, and she exemplifies a woman after God's own heart. And she is an aspiring, upcoming new author. Well, actually, she is an author right now, but she has a new book coming out. It's coming out in pre-sales right now. But she is desiring to always share her story, her life story of rejection and abandonment, and one who has suffered emotional trauma starting from a very young age. So I want to welcome to the podcast today Tammi Parnell. Thank you so much for being here, my beautiful sister.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Princess, for welcoming me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now we got to go ahead and get started because I know that we're going to have such a great conversation, and I know that your story will bless so many people today. A story about rejection, a story about how you came up and the things that you had to struggle with even early in childhood, and how God helped you to pick those pieces up, right?
Yes.
So I want you to just kind of share with the audience who is Tammi Parnell at the core, and how did you get to be this beautiful woman of God that has such a strong passion to serve other women in the area of rejection and abandonment?
Okay. Again, thank you, Princess, for welcoming me. Again, my name is Tammi Parnell, and I am a native from Michigan. Who is she? Who is she, right? In the beginning, she didn't know who she was. I was raised by single mother home, a mother who was addicted to alcohol, right? She was addicted to alcohol. I didn't have of course, I have a father, but I didn't know who he was, right? So just being raised in a single mother home who suffered from an addiction of alcohol, it was a real struggle for me. It was a struggle for me. I did have an older brother, maybe 3 years older than me, but he and I, when my mother had him, her parents took him, and so they raised him, and so then it left me back 3 years later, right, where it was just me and my mom. And so during that time, she still had the same struggles, but I was left there. I was left there, so I seen it all. And it was many times that, due to mom's addiction, she couldn't hold a job, right? She couldn't hold a job. So people say that they're for you, people say that they got your backs, but it was different for my mom. It was different for my mom. People actually called the state on her, right? Due to me not having the necessities, due to living conditions, right? Due to my mom being an alcoholic, right? And so it got to the time where they were called, the state of Michigan on my mom, and I would be taken away. I remember at the early age of 5 years old, being taken away for the first time that I remember, right? I was 5 years old, and I remember so vivid, that I was looking out the back window, and my mom was waving at me. She was waving at me, and I didn't understand anything, of course, right? I didn't understand
Right.
anything. So, after she was able to get herself together and, be able to get the things that she needed, and the state felt that she could bring me back into her home, they allowed me back into the home. But the cycle, there is a cycle, right? Because her father, my grandfather, he was also alcoholic, but he was a functional one, right?
Yeah.
He and his wife, my grandmother's the one that raised my brother with my uncle. So, he was a functional one. So it's a generational thing. It's a generational thing. So as that time came, I became older, to the point where I started witnessing domestic violence, and seeing my mother beat and bruised and things like that. Internally, it wounded me. It wounded me to the point that I would go into this cocoon, I would go into this shell, and I felt I didn't have a voice. I didn't feel like I had a voice. So I struggled with that for years. I really didn't talk about the story. We just dealt with life, right? Because as kids, what do we
Absolutely.
know to do, right? And so as that time came, um, my great grandmother is the one that actually took me in. For some odd reason, my mom's parents, they wouldn't take me, but they took my brother, right? So I had been inside of the system for so many years because I didn't have anyone to care for me. I thank God that He didn't allow me to be adopted out or go into a foster care, because I never had to do that, to the point where they finally gave me over to my great grandmother. And that's where I started seeing, probably at the age of 7, 8, I started seeing what we call love. I knew what that was. And I know my mom loved me, but due to her condition, due to the trauma that she had dealt with, due to her own addiction and her own self infliction, right? She didn't know how to love. She didn't know how to express that or show that. So I finally felt that, and I still have those pictures where, that's where I first learned the Lord's Prayer, from Granny. I called her Granny. And I remember being by her bedside, and she taught me the Lord's Prayer. And so I felt the love, I felt the comfort. She ensured me that no harm was going to come to me. I started smelling my first flowers, because she loved to she had a garden of vegetables, fruits, but then she had rose gardens everywhere. So that's when I love to smell your flowers. And it was a wonderful thing. And I stayed with her for years. And, that's where I learned church. I learned church, and I learned the Bible through her. I learned the basic principles of who Christ was, who Jesus was as a kid. I learned those principles from her, which was an awesome thing. And just knowing how to care for others, I also learned that from her. Being young, I used to go from house to house and help the elderly take the garbage out, or I go to the store for them. So that's where I believe that I learned how to serve others
Wow.
in spite of what I was going through, in spite of my little emotions, I still had the feeling to care for others.
Mm.
I never wanted to see anyone wounded or hurt. That was something that I always felt that I had to put the band-aid on, and I'm still like that today. I feel like I can put the band-aid on to care, to make sure that that wound doesn't open back up again. So I went through that until the point where Granny finally transitioned and went home to be with the Lord. I had to go back to the unknown, which I called the unknown, right? And the unknown was because I hadn't been with mom for so many years. Um, I had to go back to the unknown, and I wasn't getting the love that I had gotten. Mom was still in their addiction. She was still, with the domestic violence and things like that. So here I go from a child who felt rejected and abandoned from her mother to going into a place of comfort, a place of support, a place of love, being shown and being nurtured, being touched, to a place where I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how this feels. And now I don't have that touch. I don't have um that confidant to be able to speak those things into me. They were in me because Grant spoke them, but sometimes we just need to hear that on a regular basis as kids. So I had to go back into what I call the unknown. And from that point, it was still the addiction, it was still the domestic violence. So what do I do as a young teenager now, right? I look for love in all the wrong places. I call it that. Look for love in all the wrong places, right? And where did that look like? Somebody tell you you're cute. Somebody show you a little attention. And that's what happened. And to the point where I became a teenage mother. Teenage mother. Um, and I always told myself that I would never abandon this child. Now, my mom, she tried to do everything she could for me not to bring that child to existence, but it
Yeah.
wasn't God's choice, it wasn't God's choice. And God brought that child to life, and I love that child and I nurtured that child. I protected that child and I let that child know that he was loved. And so that's where life began for me. Now I really have somebody to love. I have somebody to care for, to protect. And that's who I am. I am a protector. I love people to feel comfortable, to know who they are. But who did I know who I was, Princess? I still don't know who I was. I
Yeah.
didn't. I just knew I was happy. I knew I was a mother. I didn't know that. I didn't know who I was. So I still dealt with the self of lack of identity. I didn't have that. I didn't have it. I just moved with life. And that's what many of us do. We just move in life. We just allow ourselves to move in life and not really take the time to look within self to know who we are or who had God called us to be, right? And what do he see us as? I always had God in me. But once I went back to the unknown, I drifted off because I didn't have that push, right?
Yeah.
And so that's all the things that I dealt with coming up into the place where I had the other trials and tribulations.
And that's so good because a lot of us we go back to the unknown or
Yeah.
what we call the unknown place.
Hmm.
And because we know that childhood memories, childhood traumas can be so debilitating. And
Yes.
even when things happen when we 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, as it happened to you,
Yes.
those things we take with us. You know what I'm saying? We take
Yes.
with us, and it takes some work. It takes support
Mm.
system. It takes love. It takes um,
Yes.
embrace, right?
Yes.
To get away from that. And God always knows what we need, right?
Right.
So He
Right.
knew that you needed your great grandmother. He
Hmm.
knew that you needed your grandmother, right? To He always have a remedy, I believe, to pull you out of the place where He can then love on you, right?
Yes.
That He can love on us. But I do know that no, sometimes we still deal with the childhood traumas, right? We still deal with
Yes.
those things that happened so long ago. And some people that might be listening, they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to, they're still feeling the pressure of some of the things that happened to them in their past. And it is I love what you said about, that sometimes we have that support system. We need that support system. So
Yes.
can you kind of go into um a little bit more about how important a real support system
Yes.
is to your healing, to your development, to your strength, and what can that look like for somebody? What can support look like?
Okay. So I come from a very small family, very just immediate family, right? I only had the one sibling brother, and as years passed, he, was murdered. So it just left me by myself. So I don't have as far as a big family support. I have cousins and things of that sort, right? But just that immediate, I'm the only child left. And I have been like that for the last probably 20 some years, until I come in contact with my sister Princess, and other women of that and brothers and things like that. But when I finally felt the tug to rededicate my life to Christ, right? Because I had been out of church for so long. I'm just living life trying to, I done had my second child, and I'm just trying to live and try to support them, try not to bring them up in the environment that I was brought up in, right? So I felt that tug from God, to come to church. So the church that I had visited as a young child, I ended up going back to that same church, not really remembering this church, but I felt a connection when I got there, right? But not really knowing this is the church that you had visited when you was a child, and just going and visiting and allowing myself to just be in a place where it was just me and God, because I was so lost. And again, not having that self identity, not having that support, right? Dedicated my life to Christ, got baptized and became very active in church, And that's where my support started,
Mm,
because mom was still, in living her lifestyle, and I was just living mine with my children. And that's when I found the support. I found the love. I found the connection. I found a belonging feeling, right? A feeling of belonging finally, and it was a pull for me,
yeah.
because I didn't know how to accept love. And there's
Mm,
so many of us that do not know how to accept love. I didn't know how to accept it, and it was a withdrawal for me, because it's like, okay, what you want, right? Like, what do you want? This is
it's
not
good.
normal. It's not normal for people to show themselves friendly. It's not normal for people to gravitate to people that they don't. That's not normal. It wasn't normal for me at that time, right? So it was kind of a push off for me, and I wasn't really accepted to it. I didn't know how to be. I could say I didn't know how to accept it. But as the times went on, and I remember every time I would leave church, I would ask my bishop, "What's my name?" He stands at the door as we leaving out. I was like, "Bishop, what's my name?" And he'll look, and I'll say Tammy, and he was like, "Tammy." Right. But I did this every Sunday. I did it every Sunday, right? And he'll stand at the door. I said, "Bishop, what's my name?" He'll look, he said, "Tammy." I said, "Yes." So I finally feel really Bishop know who I am. He knows my name. That's a feeling of acceptance, right? When somebody can call you by your name and not just her or
Yeah.
she over there, right? So I felt, okay, it's connection. And then by just accepting being a part of a ministry. And I remember my bishop's granddaughter, gave me my first Bible. She ordered it for me. She gave me my first Bible. And she put in there, it's a long description, but the thing that stuck with me most, she said, "Lord, I pray that Tammy comes into knowing who she is and bringing up the softness of her."
Mm,
Because I was so hard. I was just, because that's what I knew. I was a protector. So only thing I know is to not allow nobody to come in to destroy or to break down what I believed in. And that was protecting me, protecting my children, and not allowing you to come in and wound me any more than what I was. So when she
mhm.
put that description in there, bring out the softness in Tammy, that made me really think. And I still look at that inscription off very often, because I can feel myself going back sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I really found that really just opening up, allowing God to bring them individuals to you, and you're not pushing yourself into a certain circle because it looks
Mhm.
familiar. No, allow God to do it, and that's when you will be able to relax and allow God to move you into that direction. So being in that support team, it allowed me to have a spirit of more of a discernment spirit, and not because I've always been a person that I was always an individual by myself. I never had a real large group of people around me. And I think that's just from being growing up. I really didn't have any siblings, so I didn't know what that looks like, right? So just allowing God to just move you into that. So what a support team looks like, someone that allow you to be you, you know,
It's so
and that
good.
you're not being judged. For one, we're in a place of healing, right? And if your support team is really allowing you to be you, so God can manifest in you, so you can be able to move according to what He's calling you to move and to groom you and mold you to shape you, they're going to be there even when you're falling off. Even when you feel like, okay, she has really done flipped the script again. Because there were many times I was like, come on, Tammy, you're in here, you're in the foundation where people love you and you're welcoming in. And I used to stay the night at my bishop's house, and I used to armor bear my pastor's granddaughter. I've been all over the world with them, but I just didn't know how to act, Princess. I didn't know what that looked like. I wasn't loud and boisterous or anything like that, but I didn't feel like I knew how to be normal. I didn't know how better for us to say engaging in conversation with people
Yeah.
because I didn't really have people to really conversate with, right? So how do you do that? How do you open yourself up to know how to engage in a meaningful conversation and then having the people to not judge you when it feels like you're going off on the deep end, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so just allowing God to bring those individuals to you and for them to, when they accept you for who you are, because that's what Christ said, He accepts us for who we are, in
Yeah.
the midst of that, them helping you change. They hear what you're saying, but they're not judging you. They're not judging you for where you are or where you're not at. And that circle right there will allow you to feel somewhat free. I feel
Yeah.
free to be around my family. I feel free to be around my coworkers. I feel free to be in a setting like this. I feel free. Years ago, I wouldn't be able to feel free. Why? Because I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know how to really voice what I'm really feeling. Now I can voice what I'm feeling in a way that it's not coming off wrong, but it's coming off where people can receive it and knowing and having their spirit of discernment just as well, right? To say, okay, God, I hear you. I see you, God. I see you, God, right? And thank you, God, for bringing me in her life because now you brought me here. So when she feel like she falling, the spirit man is going to tell me, call her. The spirit man is going to tell me to text, right? And for us
Right.
to be able to accept it. So once we become free,
Yeah.
you start loving yourself, then you allow somebody else to love you just as well. And that's where that circle will grow and it'll
Yeah.
make you become whole.
Yeah. That's so good because we know that a lot of times support is not going to look like what you want it to look like.
Yes.
God is going to always send those people
Yeah.
in your presence that all we need to do is receive, right?
Receive.
And
Yeah.
I'm so glad you hit on the topic of sometimes we don't know how to receive because of our trauma, because of the things that
Yes.
we've gone through, because that trauma has turned our mentalities in such a way. We build up these walls, right? We build up
Hmm.
these walls that, that cannot be torn down, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
the thing that tears it down is just what you're saying. When people embrace you in a non-judgmental way, that allows us to be free. That
Yeah.
allows us to,
Mhm.
it almost like it chips away at that wall. Their love and their a non-judgmental spirit, it chips away at that at wall. And one day you keep chipping, right? You keep chipping at the wall,
You
it's
keep
gonna
touching.
eventually come down. And
Yes.
so that's what your support system does, is that the things, the people that chip away at that wall, that one day you will become free to be able to even share
Yes.
your story, be free
Yes.
to live your life, and not just live and say that you overcame or just you survived it, but you can also thrive in life. And
Definitely.
sometimes that we know, because we know how it feels to be rejected, because we know how it feels to be abandoned, we know how it feels. Now we have compassion for other people, right? To be able
Yes.
to help them along in their journey as well, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I thank God for his word, because even when you were talking, I know that a lot of things, even that our listeners, our people that are watching or listening, I'm pretty, they have gone through some stuff in their past, and
Yes.
they still have these walls up. And it goes back to what you were saying. You have to know who you are. You have
Yes.
to know who you are in Christ, who you are, the thing that you are called to do, and be strong in that. But
Yes.
that support system, I'm telling you, it
Yes.
is a tremendous thing that we need to always have in place, right?
Right.
I know our time is almost running out, but I wanted to ask you. I know that you're out with the new book, and I know it's a story about mirrors, and seeing yourself in the mirror. So can you just briefly tell us what the book is about, and what kind of prompted you to write the book?
Okay, yes, yes. Do have a new book that is in pre-sale, and it's called The Power of the Mirror. How that book came, I was back in Michigan again, not having the identity of who I was, right? Not knowing how to smile, not knowing how to be per se, right? God took me, he told me one day that to go to the mirror. I went to my bathroom mirror, really not knowing understand. So that's why it's good to, when you hear God's voice, follow what he's telling you, because he's taking you somewhere, right? So do this power of the mirror. He took me back, and I had to literally look inside of this mirror for a year before I would go with on my day, before I got my children up. He had me in front of this mirror. What took place in this mirror, you're asking, right? So what took place in the mirror, I had to learn how to smile. I had to learn how to give myself affirmations. I had to, because these are muscles and things that I didn't know how to do. It's normal to smile, right? But because
Yeah.
I had to be someone, I had to have a certain persona about myself. That was a normal thing for me to smile. So I always had a serious look on my face as a defense mechanism, right? So he took me back, because smiling is a form of release. It's a form of love, a passion, right? So he took me back to the mirror. He started having me to smile. I have making all these different faces, and not just having a bland look. Then he's had me to start speaking. I heard the voice. He was speaking. I was speaking to myself. So that I called what? Self affirmations, right? So that's what the Power of the Mirror book. It is a book that I went through 20 some years ago. The book has finally come to pass. I
Wow.
finally stepped out of fear of what others may think. We got to break that. I finally broke out of not caring what people say and feel, right? So, The Power of the Mirror is a book of scripture. It's a book of affirmation. It has a mirror on there for you to be able to reflect yourself, to see what God sees in you, right? And for you to be able to reflect that back, because what? The mirror doesn't lie. The mirror gives you exactly what is in that mirror, your identity, and you see that. So that book is so profound. It gives you based the scripture on self-love. It gives you an affirmation to read to yourself daily, to speak those things to life, so you can start being able to not being scared of what you see in the mirror, and be able to speak those things. It's not what nobody else says, but what the word says of who you are. So that is what the power of the mirror is. Is a definitely profound. It's a 30-day book of affirmation for women, and it's very powerful, very meaningful, and it's to heal your soul and for you to be able to look in that mirror and be able to
Yeah.
speak life to self.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here
Thank
on
you.
the podcast. So wonderful to hear this powerful story. And I know that it will be so many people that will be blessed
Yes.
and honored by what you had to say. And hopefully they will be able to find their own way.
Yes.
They have similar backgrounds of being rejected and coming through those things in their
Yes.
childhood, and just being able to bounce back and
Yes.
live a fulfilling life, the life that God wants us to live, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to make sure that everybody knows, tell everybody quickly how they can get in touch with you, how they can follow you on social media, and how they can purchase your book.
Okay, so I am on Facebook as Tammi, Tammil Parnell. That's Parnell. That's Tammi L. Parnell on Facebook. On IG, on Instagram, you can find me as Coach Tammi. Coach Tammi 18 are the ways that you can reach me. You can also reach me by my email, and that is my name again, Tammi, Tammi. Parnell, Parnell 67 at gmail.com. And
All
also,
right.
Facebook is my pre-orders out there on Facebook for my ordering of my new book.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Tammi, for being here
Thank you
and
for
sharing your
having
powerful
me.
story.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, that was another episode of Restore My Soul podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to do what Tammi has said. We're going to break free from the fear of judgment so that we can live our lives and just not only just live, but to thrive. So make sure that you continue to follow me on all social media at Princess Millens and my website at princessmillens.com. Y'all remember that grief is a journey, but you don't have to walk that thing alone. We're here every week. And we'll see you next time in the next episode of the Restore My Soul podcast.
Thank you for joining another episode of Restore My Soul podcast. Be sure to listen and watch each week as we continue the conversation on how to bounce back from the setback of grief and loss and to become resilient so that you too can thrive in life. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any new episodes, and share this with as many people as possible so they can be encouraged in their emotional wellness journey. We invite you to follow Princess Millens on all social media platforms and on the website at princessmillens.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Restore My Soul